Hi everyone, I'm Giacomo Ladas from Rentsync, and I'm joined for a quick reaction chat with Gabriel Diamond from Well Grounded Real Estate. We actually recently spoke with Gabe on our last episode of the Sink or Swim podcast, but with a new announcement of the federal government removing GST on new rental builds. We really wanted to have him back on to hear his opinion and get his reaction from it. So, Gabe, once again, my man, thanks for your time.
Absolutely, my pleasure. It's kind of funny how quickly that podcast became a little outdated, but all in all, yesterday was excellent news. I mean, it's an actual material change that's going to make a difference for purpose built rental. It's it's not simply a photo op to provide funding to a specific municipality or some sort of grandiose building target of X million homes by 2035. This is a tangible change that's going to activate the private sector and allow them to truly make a decision on whether to develop condo versus rental based on what the market wants, not simply on which model will pencil or not. Right now, you can actually listen to the market and make a decision where the fees are a little bit more aligned for each type of building.
Right. So, maybe get a little more into that. Like, where do you think we're going to see these savings? Like, I'm sure most of us will think, well, construction costs, but how about other contractual services or maybe other costs that people don't really know how this will actually affect developers like yourselves?
It's a great question. So I mean, the way I was thinking about this, and I'm sure there was a lot of private developers in the last day or two that were looking at their pipeline, adjusting their underwriting, adjusting their pro formas to say, hey, can this site work for rental now? And just to put in a little bit of perspective, suppose you're building a 150 to 200 unit multifamily building, and say the construction costs for round numbers are around 100 million. This change just removed around $10 million in fees, in your soft costs. And so, to your question, where are you going to see it the most, or what else is going to impact? I mean, I think really where you're gonna see this tangible difference outside of whether to build condo, whether to build rental, is zeroing in specifically on purpose built rental, is mid-rise product in sort of B and C locations, within the GTA, for example. So areas that are not you know eh, King West or Young and Bloor, areas that are not going to command the highest rents. And the reason I say that is because, and we sort of talked about this the other day, is that in all likelihood, if you're developing or hoping to develop purpose built rental in a B or C location, you couldn't finance this HST component to begin with because the rents in these areas simply wouldn't support the takeout financing, which you need to cover the construction loan. So in a lot of areas, this HST was basically funded completely out of pocket as a form of equity.
Right.
And again, that's one of the major differences with condo, where your equity component is less because you have pre-sales, and all in all, it's a different structure. But really, what this did was remove a significant portion of equity required that you weren't able to previously finance, depending on your location. So it's a major welcome change.
And we do think this will help well grounded and other developers to really pivot, right, and start to bring that influx of not only supply, but maybe in areas where we normally wouldn't have built, but because we're saving a little bit on this HST, we can now build more, faster, and in different areas where we can actually have affordable homes as well.
Absolutely, and hopefully pass on these savings to end users, to tenants, to say, hey, we don't need $5, $6, $7 per square foot rents. We can make this
Right.
work at more reasonable numbers.
Yeah. Now going off this, because I always like to look at this as a momentum thing. Like, what else can they do better or build from momentum that we're going to already start with this? We're seeing a huge positive reaction to this announcement. So, what else can we look forward to maybe seeing happen again or happen in the future to really help this really get some engine and steamroll behind it?
I mean, I think development charges is certainly one. That's more on the municipal level for sure, and it gets a little bit complicated because a city like Toronto, you need these sources of revenues. But as we were talking about in terms of incentives and trying to equalize the impact of fees on condo versus rental, if you were to significantly reduce or remove DCs, or at least on purpose built rental, now I believe you can amortize over 6 years. What if you could amortize those DCs over 10, 20, 30 years to more align with, the operations of a long-term rental building? That would have a significant impact. I mean, the numbers are slightly different, but on that example of 100 million, your DCs were anywhere from around $7 to $10 million. And you could also have levers to, different, I think it's worth, like right now, DCs, in Toronto, for example, are the same based on unit type, depending on the location. Well, not every location is equal. And you have better transportation, better, location within a city. They should be differentiated. And perhaps you can make adjustments to DCs as well in terms of, the types of units that you're trying to incentivize. If we want larger family oriented rental, which I certainly would argue, would be welcome in this market, how can you adjust DCs to better incentivize developers to build that? Because right now our system selects for smaller units where you can get higher per square foot sales or rent, on those shoebox units, and that's not conducive for family living.
No, and that's the thing. The rental landscape's so different now, where it's not just people who moved out of their house for the first time. It's renters are families now. They have kids. They have good, stable jobs. So this can help escalate 2, 3 bedroom units being built. I think that helps in the short and long term for sure. Gabe, I think that's good. I appreciate that.
No, for sure. And I was just going to mention, I mean, you see this in other markets, and I think Canada in a lot of ways is a little unique. I mean, you also see it in the US a little bit, for sure. But, there's sort of this stigma around family rental or being a renter long term. Whereas in all sorts of cities across Europe, or even in New York, for example, family rental is not as, sort of frowned upon, or some sort of measure of success, or, if you want to raise your family, you have to have this white picket fence and a yard. And, based on where home prices are right now, that's not something that's necessarily achievable in the short term. Interest rates and the whole thing, it's not, perfect for everyone. And it doesn't have to be, right? I mean, if you create excellent rental product with amenities and access to outdoor space and walkability, there's nothing wrong with that. It allows for flexibility, and a whole host of, you don't have to manage a property. There's all sorts of benefits. And I think, if we can build more purpose-built rental with a specific focus on family-oriented units, there's very much a place for that in our market.
Absolutely. Hey, all I could hear is positives coming from this. So really happy that you came here and give us your reaction. I know we're going to be seeing this a lot more in the news coming up, and it seems like it's something that's really going to make a difference and have some positive reactions from everybody in the industry. So once again, Gabriel Diamond from Well Grounded Real Estate, really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me.